and we are up. So thank you very much for joining the MCT show number 10 this week. So 10 weeks in a row, and we have the pleasure this week to have a special guest from Denver, Colorado, Nate Smith from MovNat Denver. It's a great pleasure for me and for the community, but for me, now that I can meet you finally,
Yeah.
it's been a long time. So welcome, Nate.
Hey, thank you so much.
So
No,
Nate, I've heard many times about your name and with Matt as well, because you guys are the key guys at MovNat Denver, and I heard from you about Danny, about Stefano, and many others, and they all told me that it was great to hang out with you guys and be there. And so, but I didn't have the pleasure yet to get to know you, to be in Denver. I heard many good things about Colorado, and it looks gorgeous behind you.
yeah, absolutely. Come join sometime whenever you find the time.
I will. It's again great pleasure, and I'm sure we'll have a good time during this hour to get to know you. I will have this chance myself to get to know you better. So I always like to start this way. Give us a quick introduction. Take the time you want. Your sports background, where you come from, and what led you to MovNat. Basically, feel free to develop anything you want.
Yeah, so I've been in Colorado pretty much my whole life since I was 2, and so very active. My folks live in Evergreen, Colorado, which is right outside Denver, about half an hour. So it's up in the mountains, like the foothill. Well, we say the foothills. Mountains to most people, but it's smaller mountains to us. Yeah, so we live up there. I had a huge peak right outside my front door, so I could just go run around that. So being in the woods was something always near and dear to me, and that was just kind of like my escape. And I would go play outside all the time. And then through like grade school, I tried like every sport, and I didn't really find one that I liked. But I tried them all because I wanted to try and participate with all of them. And then get into middle school, and I found martial arts. So started with Taekwondo and progressed with that pretty quickly. And I ended up getting really sick in middle school. It was like I had this weird like gallbladder thing. And so was out of school in sports for about 3 months. Like I lost like all my weight. I went down to like 60 pounds. I was like a super frail kid. And then
How old were you?
I was 11, and I went from like 100 pounds to like 60 pounds. And yeah, so that like really kind of messed with me, because I pretty much got really skinny, and then I had to bounce back from that. And so come high school, we had a really good weightlifting program. We had a ex-college football coach, and he was like a bodybuilder and all this stuff. So his weightlifting program was actually really good. And it would focus just, on like the big lifts, like power clean, back squat, deadlift, all that type of stuff. So I had a decent introduction to that. And then one of my friends introduced me to a UFC school, and it was called the Greds Training Center. And so I went down there, and I would go down there a couple nights a week and train jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. And so that, I got back into martial arts, did that for a while. And then unfortunately for me, like I also had like some other friends that were not the best influences, and just started partying a lot, and just kind of like got disillusioned with the movement thing only because like I had like my priorities just weren't straight. And I at that same time I went to culinary school. So culinary school really like opened my eyes to food, to nutrition, to the community around it. And so all these things, to me, like I finally saw like, community and health and food and movement were the things that were actually like bringing me joy. And so fast forward a little bit, after I kind of like got my head straight, I found MovNat through Daniel Vitalis's podcast, the Rewild Yourself podcast. And so I looked it up, immediately signed up for the next one. It was 3 months later. And I had also been really into rock climbing for, the last 7 years. And so I'm like, oh, all right, like I want to do this. I think I'm strong enough, whatever. Like I can go do MovNat. Seems like I could do the level 1. Totally humbled by it. It was in 2015. It was with Cameron Prado too. So he was like really pretty strict about the whole thing, and get through level 1. And then I didn't pass. I think it was 2 or 3 skills I didn't pass in my level 2. And so I'm just like, okay, there's so much more to this than I never even thought, like I just thought like, oh yeah, I can climb. I can, do a little combative stuff. I can lift heavy weight. I'm like, all right, that's so limited. It was such a narrow viewpoint. And so really dove down the MovNat rabbit hole for years and years, and just kept following it, kept progressing with it. And then I met my business partner, Matt, about 3 or 4 years ago. And he and I just started talking, and he introduced me to the Czech Institute. So that's Paul Czech's work. And so I really liked his work on the corrective side of things. And I saw a lot of MovNat in that. And I'm like, they're just different labels for the same things, same types of movements, same type of ground movement. So I started combining those, and I introduced Matt to MovNat. So I did the Czech stuff, he did MovNat. And then from there, we just kept collaborating more and more. And I was able to start building a really strong framework for my own practice. And then during one of Matt's recertifications for level 2, he invited me down to go do it. So I volunteered and showed up, and it was with Danny. And this is how the whole conversation got started with MovNat Denver. And we show up, and it turned out like everybody had canceled. It was just a weird cert. So it was literally Matt, myself, and Danny, and then the 2 owners of the gym who we're still collaborating with. It was Existence Athletics. So it was just the 4 of us and Danny. And so it was a really kind of unique level. Yeah, very intimate level 2. And we ended up taking the level 2 outside by my house to this big park. So we did the rest of the certification outdoors, really got to know each other. And Matt and I at that point had already had a business plan for our own facility that wanted to be like MovNat affiliated, but not MovNat Denver per se. And so we brought the idea up to him. He was all about it. And then, the rest, like some people may know through social media and things like that, but it ended up being really good. And then we started to struggle a little bit because, we're a new gym, and our location wasn't necessarily ideal. It was pretty good, but our location kind of hindered us in some ways. And then, the quarantine hit, and we're like, okay, now things have just been pretty hectic, but we finally have some answers into which direction we're going to go. So I'm happy with that.
Good. All right. So thank you for the introduction. We'll get back to the gym, quarantine and so on. I was listening carefully. You were talking about the gallbladder issues, and that you lost 40 pounds and in nutrition. What was it, and how did you recover? Because I'm interested. Personally, I got my gallbladder removed a few years ago.
Oh, really?
So I know what the hell is this. But tell us your story.
Yeah, so thankfully I didn't have to get mine removed. But essentially the gallbladder duct that releases the bile, it got like sealed off from what I know now. What I'm thinking is like it was too many gallstones or something, and it just got blocked. So they had to go in, and they went in through my esophagus and opened it up, and they said it just dumped all this fluid and all this like biomass just dumped out. And it was hands down because I was eating a lot of processed garbage as an 11-year-old, because that's what you think is best. Like, oh yeah, you can eat whatever and it's totally fine. And so that was my first inclination to like, what you eat really matters. I didn't take it quite as seriously as I should have for years. But like I said, when I went to culinary school, that's when I was like, you know, really preparing your meals and cooking your meals, that's a big step in the right direction for most people. And then you can get into the conversation of like what type of oils you should be using, you know, and like what type of grains versus no grains or legumes and all that stuff. And all those things will ultimately create stagnation in your body. And that's what happened to me, is there was stagnation in my gallbladder, like too much processed fat and all this stuff coming in that was causing the problem. So yeah, I mean, it was resolved through the surgery, and thankfully the surgery wasn't that invasive. So I'm not really dealing with issues from it today. But my sister also, she had her gallbladder removed. So, you know, it could potentially also be like some type of genetic link as well, that we were more prone to it. But yeah, I mean, are you noticing any, I don't know, any drawbacks from having your gallbladder removed?
No, I mean, you know, like you said, it's about not eating processed food at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
you in Colorado, you have the reputation to be a healthy state. You know, like being in the mountains. Look at this. You know, the clear sky. You can be rock climbing, doing a lot of stuff, and people also, as I heard, I'm from Europe. You know, I'm from not from there, but I heard that you are very picky on nutrition. So, but you're telling us that you were eating processed food. So I think that's a good message for all the families,
Hmm.
kids, that everybody believes, oh yeah, when you're 10 to 12 to 15, you can eat whatever you want because you're growing and it's calories
Yeah.
in anyway. That's a good message to say, well, no, because I had issues, you know?
Yeah. And it's, I mean, and it's also kind of funny too. I'm sure you've seen when, like, what some people consider health food or healthy food, you know, sometimes it's not healthy at all. And they're like, oh yeah, it's canola oil. It's totally clean. Like there's no allergens or whatever. I'm like, no, that's the worst thing. That's something in the, like being a cook for such a long time. I mean, we would use canola oil because people didn't have allergies to it. And I'm like, well, it's one of the most inflammatory foods you could possibly consume. And, but it was cheap and it's easy to produce. So even restaurants, like I worked at a, you know, a semi-fine dining restaurant. So there was such a weird disconnect because sometimes we would get in these really high quality cuts of food, but then we would just douse the thing in garbage, you know? It was like you're putting like GMO soy sauce on it and canola oil and like all kinds of crap. And I'm like, all right, well, we just took this beautiful cut of meat and we covered it in shit, and now we're serving it. And it was, there was a weird disconnect. And I think a lot of people have that. They'll hear like, okay, I need to eat grass-fed meat, so they eat grass-fed meat, but they cook it in the same crap they've been cooking it in. So that's a really big deal to me. I think it's learning how to cut out the stuff that's kind of the hidden, you know, the hidden devils, so to speak. It's like they hear like, oh, salt's good for you now. Like salt was bad for you, now salt's good for you. It's like, no, it's like certain kinds of salt are really good to eat. But like if you're still just putting table salt, you know, sodium, just like sodium chloride on your food, that's not real sea salt. That doesn't have all the minerals. That doesn't balance your pH. That, you know, so there's it's a hard subject, but I think, you know, it really just comes down to like, would this be easy to replicate in nature, or would it be easy for our ancestors 3,000 years ago to replicate? If the answer to that is yes, then it's like, okay, then it's probably safe to be eating, you know. And then there's a lot more nuance too, and other people, you know, like I personally feel that animal foods have a place in our diet. I think that's a really big part of how we evolved, and they have a lot of nutrients. But on the ethical side, if you're not comfortable doing that, then there's ways around it. But then you get into the conversation that I have a lot with, like, okay, if you're not eating animal foods, you're probably sourcing your foods from like Mexico in the wintertime, or all like places from Europe, you know, getting your olive oil from Europe. And now you're just creating this huge transportation chain of getting all these foods from all over the world. And you're like, oh yeah, but they're healthy. It's like, are you, now it's not, now it doesn't even make sense. You would never be able to do that, even though they're healthy foods, you know? And I mean, I love doing that. Like I have a culinary background, so it's great for me to have all these ingredients, but it doesn't necessarily make sense. And you look at the restaurants in the world, and they're both of these restaurants were rated #1 for years, and they're both in Europe, of course, because you guys have, in my opinion, like that's like where food and culinary art is at its peak. But the Noma is one, and then Massimo Bottura's restaurant. Both of those guys have the #1 restaurant in the world, and both of them only get their food from like 100-mile radius of their restaurant. Every single ingredient they use comes from where they live. They don't source anything outside of the world. So to me, I'm like, that's where the health comes from. That's where the community comes from. That's where the biggest nutrition is going to come from. You're going to be in sync with your food. You're going to have a relationship with it. So if you're really looking for like the maximum radiance, you know, grow your food, talk to your farmers, try and source things as close to you as possible, you know, get organic food, but still like treat yourself. Like, I mean, I'm drinking coffee. I obviously can't get coffee in Colorado, and people are like, oh, it's local coffee. I'm like, no, they got it from South America and then they roasted it here. That's not local coffee. So there's a lot of things like that I think, I don't know, that are more nuanced, but at the end of the day, just first cut out the processed crap and then start discovering what works best for you, and try and lean towards like organic food and local food, and maybe even start hunting your food or foraging your food if you can, you know, if that's an option in your area, but it's not for everybody.
Look, Nate, I love the answer because nutrition is a very tricky topic, and you can go down the rabbit hole, and that can be a slippery slope, and you can open this debate, endless debate. But the answer you gave was what? It was totally in line with what we do at MovNat, which is to be practical, to have a sense of community. You know, talking about being practical, you want to find your food locally. You want to talk to, you said talking to your farmer, which is to be connected, strong to be helpful, you know. All those concepts can be applied into nutrition, and I can see that this is what you do. What you do. And we are mentioning hunting, and we have a question. By the way, that's a good a tip for me to remind everybody in the live that they can drop a comment in the chat section. Okay. So Nate, you will be able also to see the questions if you click on chat. We have Coach Julie who said, "I love the answer. Will it be easy to replicate in nature?" You know, and the question from Krista was, "So, have you started hunting yet?"
I have started hunting. Oh, I see the chat here. Yep, I have started hunting. So my business partner Matt is my mentor. He's my one of my best friends, but he's also in some ways my mentor, and I'm his mentor in other ways. And this is a little side tangent. I always think you have people that you're equal in some regard, and then you have people you teach, and then you have people you learn from. And sometimes that's the same person. In some ways, Matt and I are equals in a lot of ways. In some ways, I'm his mentor, and then I'm his student in other ways. So I think that's something you should look for in all your friends and family. How can you teach each other, and how can you learn from each other? And then how can you have a discourse with each other, and then have be on equal grounds and share a conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, before you answer, I think it's a great point that you mentioned, that we can have friends where we can have admiration for them and respect for their talents and learn from them. You know, my best friend who lives in Montreal, Canada, is French, had the capacity to learn a language in 2-3 months and be like a local. And I was always in awe of this guy. Like, how can you do that? Because French people are not don't have the reputation to speak different languages with the accent and so on. So yeah, I think you make a great point. We can have friends, but everybody has different talents, skills, and we can learn from each other. But so sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. So yeah, Matt, he's actually he's half Navajo, so he has a lot of family on the Navajo reservation. So hunting is a huge part of their way of life. So he's been hunting since he was a little kid. He's taught me a lot. So
rifle or bow?
So he does both. We do archery and rifle. So right now I'm doing rifle. I haven't got my bow yet because of the quarantine, because I went to a shop and we sized it up. We got everything right. You know, I'm like, all right, I'll be back when I have a little bit more money to go buy this bow. And then the quarantine happened and the shop had to close. So I can't go back in and get it right now. But so I missed archery season this year, but there's another one in August, but I missed the early season. So our rifle season, yep, we got drawn again this year for deer, and last year we got deer. And I gotta say, like, there is nothing more MovNat than going on a hunting trip. That's like the purest expression of it. And we went out in November, and when we get to the campsite, there's 6 inches of snow on the ground. We're like, all right, this is pretty doable. We can do that. We're camped at 9,800 feet, so we're pretty high up there. And the weather report says there's going to be like another 4 inches of snow, and it ends up snowing the entire time for a grand total of like probably 24, 25 inches of snow, and we're buried. And we're just covered. Everything's covered. The trucks are stuck. Everything's stuck. And so that's what we were hunting and trying to find these deer. And so we had, long story short, we eventually had to make our way down the mountain, and unfortunately had to leave. But one of our hunting partners ended up getting a deer. So we still got to all share in that deer meat. And yeah, I'm going out again this year, and hopefully this will be the year that I get my deer. And then we're getting over-the-counter elk tags. So I don't know what the hunting regulations are like in Europe, but do you guys have to get tags for animals?
Yes.
Yeah. So our over-the-counter tag is a tag that allows us to just pick any unit. And so we have different game units in Colorado. And so we can get an over-the-counter tag and kind of go to any area that catches our eye or something we think is going to be viable. But the deer tag, when you get drawn for a tag, they're tags that allow you to hunt, a more desirable animal. So over-the-counter tags, you won't always get to hunt what you want, but it's more accessible. But when you get drawn, it's kind of like a lottery, so to speak. So you get drawn, and then you can go, and this is, I guess it's pretty rare. I've gotten drawn twice in 2 years for deer. And before that, my two hunting partners.
What did you bribe?
Huh?
What did you bribe?
Oh, I didn't bribe it. Yeah. I bribed the clerk at Walmart. I was like, come on, man, I'll train you. I'll cook some food for you. But no, Travis was telling me that it's been 4 or 5 years and they haven't been drawn. And then so we just got drawn back to back. So it's been really, that was really pretty lucky. So I'm excited for that. And then for bow, actually just where I live right now, I mean, we have wild turkeys all over the place. So I want to do archery season for turkey. And then we have a lot of pheasant and like dove and stuff like that. So I just want to kind of like get into it more. I'm definitely an amateur when it comes to that. But I mean, I got to say, like the quality of the meat is, second to none. So it's definitely the best. Although, that's again, the deer I'm eating in Colorado, to me, is the best because it's a Colorado deer.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was where you were, I'd want to eat the venison that you guys have. I'm like, that's where it's going to taste better because it hasn't traveled very far. So I guess the quality is all relevant. It's all relative. So yeah. Did you get another question in there?
Yeah, Krista got all fired up now. She's like a MovNat hunting trip in Colorado. We demo natural movement inside.
Yeah.
And then do you follow Hank's show at Hunt, Gather, Cook?
No, I actually haven't heard of that. That sounds pretty cool. Should definitely look into that. Yeah, I get a lot of. Oh, do I have any recipes? What does that question say?
Do you have any recipes for my less than a mile groundhog?
For groundhog. Hold on, let me pull it up. I don't. I've never cooked groundhog. I'd love to though.
So Krista is challenging you in many things. The first thing would be a MovNat hunting trip in Colorado.
Yeah, I'm all about it. But I mean, as everyone here is probably aware, it's like you're always MovNatting, you know. Every moment of your existence is MovNat. It's just like how I don't want to say how good do you do it, but it's, you know, how mindful are you when you're doing it. I mean, just sitting here, you and I sitting, this is a natural position. So it's everything we're doing is a MovNat experience. But it would be really cool, you know. I understand what she's saying though. Like, I don't know how you could orchestrate something like that. We'd have to get some kind of like guiding license. If somebody wants to set it up, I don't want to go get the guide license. If someone wants to set it up, then go ahead and do it. But that's not a bad idea.
Nate, I'll holler at you.
Huh?
We don't need to do it as a guided thing, but I'll holler at you.
Oh yeah, let's go.
I got some ideas for you.
Perfect. That would be awesome. Yeah, send me a message.
Yeah, so definitely Krista is into it. And you mentioned also the guy who introduced you to MovNat, Daniel Vitalis. I actually met him during the level 2 certification I've done.
Okay.
I mean, we were in the same group to certify back in 2014. That was in Houston, Texas. I mentioned it a couple of times during this show that that was the first time during the year. I think the first time that year, the only time, sorry, that Erwan and Vic were teaching the level 1, level 2. So,
oh yeah.
So a lot of people showed up, and I'm sure you know a few names from this group: Stefano Tripney, Eric Brown, and we also had Daniel Vitalis in there, and myself. So, and that was cool. And the French TV crew actually was on site, and they wanted to do a documentary about food, about paleo diet, and they wanted to portray the MovNat crowd as cavemen because that was what was selling, you know, at the time. So they were asking us, do you eat your meat raw, and you know, all these kind of weird questions. But Daniel in the end appears in the documentary when he's talking about, you know, hunting local and eating venison. And we were in the restaurant. He's like, that's the only time that I eat meat from a restaurant because we have this team dinner. Usually I get all white game and so on. So have you actually been in interaction with him, or you just follow these podcasts?
I signed up for his, did you see the WildFed podcast, his new project?
Not the latest one, but I know the old one.
Yeah, so his latest project is called WildFed, and he did a whole TV show, and it's a really phenomenal show. So I signed up for like his experience group where you get to do Q&As with him. So that's the most direct communication I've had with Daniel, was just doing some Q&As through his TV show. So you watch the episode, and then he'll have a group kind of surrounding the topics that they covered on the TV show episode. So I asked him a few questions on there, and I mean, unfortunately, like I would love to have more interaction with the guy. But that's all I've really had so far. But I really, you know, I think he's nailed it in my opinion. Like he's got the message like down, but and it's, you know, he's kind of veered in a different direction from the Rewild Yourself podcast, but I think that's fine. That's, you know, he's following his passion. So.
No, I mean, Daniel has been a big, you know, support for MovNat for many years, and we are thankful for that. He even did during this level 2A. I think we have on our MovNat YouTube channel. If you YouTube MovNat Daniel Vitalis, you will find a piece like he's talking about MovNat for 5 minutes. I remember what he said. I still remember what he said about this MovNat set being a long warm up. So it's like you constantly warm up during the 2 days.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You feel like you will, okay, when do we actually train? But at the end of the day, you're knackered because you were just warming up all the time. You know, you do what you said, natural movement all day long.
Yeah. I want to echo that because I can't remember the guy's name. Maybe you could remind me. He's one of the founders of, you know, Arte du Placement, the original parkour, like when he was one of the 6, like the Yamakasi guys.
David
you know
Bell?
What I'm talking about? Yeah, David Bell. I think it was David Bell who said it. He said the idea of the cold start, how like you should be able to you know, like a cheetah can just like go, or my dog, I'll see my dog just like sleeping and just sprint up and shoot outside because she hears a bird or something on the porch. She's like, oh, I'm going to go get it just instantly. And I love that idea. I think that is such an important thing that we shouldn't have to like do all these like, all right, let me like get this and do that. And you know, like can do all these things before I go, you know, go run. But obviously, you know, there's something to be said for like warming up, but the movements themselves should just keep your body supple, you know, keep your body loose and warm. And, you know, maybe in the morning I'm a little bit stiffer, but like by this point, like I could go start doing my practice, you know, whatever that looks like today. So I just love that idea. I try and tell my clients that all the time. I was like, the goal is for us to just have a cold start, like that you can come in here and we can just start moving right away. And we don't have to do this unnecessary, excessive, like hip extensions and all this stuff. But like, you know, we'll get your body to where it needs to be.
Yeah, so David Bell is a legend. You know, I'm French.
Oh.
He's from Paris, and he did great things back in the days, and still now. And the analogy you gave about the dog, seeing a prey and going. This is the analogy I always give, actually, in my workshops. And I just finished this analogy by saying, "What do you think the dog do? You know, when the cat is faster and the dog comes back to his place, they sleep again. You know,
Yeah.
It's like 2 minutes later, they're like, all right, next. They're not,
Yeah.
It's not a big deal for them.
No, they're in the moment. And that's another, it's just like go a little further with it. I mean, it's not just the movement. They're just so much more present. They're able to, it's like easy come, easy go, you know, they're able to latch onto something and then just like, all right, I guess that's not it. I guess I'm going to go this way. They don't hold grudges. Not really. I mean, unless you're an asshole to your dog, but you know, they're just so much more present. And I think that's, you know, we can all learn a little bit from our, you know, man's best friend, so to speak.
Oh, we sure can. And you don't see a dog also telling the cat, wait a second, I need to warm up like 2 minutes. I will do some some light warm up and
Yeah.
then I can go, you know?
Yeah. It's awesome.
All right. Hey, that's a great conversation so far, Nate. You were talking about your history and how did you create, what was the process for creating MovNat Denver and were you like 100% MovNat or how did you implement the MovNat program into your philosophy? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So when it came to group classes, it was predominantly MovNat for sure. I would say that was the backbone to everything. And this is where, you know, like, I guess definitions and labels kind of get in the way a little bit because we did a lot of kettlebell stuff and we did a lot of like barbells. Yeah, yeah, we did a lot of barbell stuff too. Because I mean, we're big fans of Pavel, you know, and then Vic obviously is a big part of Strong First. So yeah, I mean, I love the kettlebell. It's in terms of like weighted implements, it's my favorite one. But I also love the barbell. I love have you seen the maces and like the clubs? Yeah, so we have maces and clubs. We have all that stuff. So, but like to me, I'm also like lifting and carrying is part of MovNat, and then the tool just happens to be a really curated object, you know. And those objects were really good for us to teach clients proper form on. Because some of the people coming in, I wouldn't be comfortable just like putting rocks in front of them, being like, all right, overhead press this rock, or like, you know, go ahead and deadlift this. Like, I'd rather teach them on a barbell or with a kettlebell or something.
Why is that? Sorry to interrupt. It's an interesting point for me. Why do you think a rock could not be like a basic tool?
Well, because if I was teaching young people, it's absolutely a foundational tool. But I see this, you see this pattern where people get so far removed from what is a natural movement that starting them with some things that are natural in the environment are more difficult than creating a controlled environment. So it's almost, you almost have to like, you know, retro engineer the movement by using a controlled environment to bring people back to that baseline. There, you know, there's some things like, you know, ground movement is the best example. It's like you can just start people on ground movement, you know, pretty much almost anybody can get on the ground in some way. It's harder for some people depending on how, you know, how far off that healthy baseline they are. But, you know, ground movement's a great tool. That's a foundational tool. But a lot of people aren't comfortable like grabbing a rock and lifting it overhead. So you start them with a similar weight, but it's a controlled setting. So I kind of think of it like a movement laboratory. It's like, we're going to use these things to help bring you back to a place where you feel comfortable again outside, like when you were a kid. But my sister has 5 kids, and they live 20 minutes from me. So I hang out with them a lot. And the 2 oldest boys, they're 10 and 14. And so I train them, you know, all the time, but I play with them. I don't really train them. I play with them and I teach them different stuff. The older one, who's 14, I'd say I get a little bit more technical with him. And I want to teach him like proper stuff and like, you know, really start to break things down for him, because he's at that age where he could start to really excel. But for them, like, it's no problem to be like, well, I'll take them on a camping trip. I'm like, hey, like, throw these rocks as far as you can. Let's pick this stuff up and, you know, just like move logs and start fires and all that. So I find it easier the younger somebody is, the closer they are to the source. That's something I'm taking from my friend Rory, who's a great he's a MovNat level 3 guy. He always says children are at the source. Like, you see a kid or a child, they're recently born, and their movement is, you know, it's great. Their mobility is amazing. Like, they just naturally do all these things. Erwan talks about it all the time with his kids. Like, they can just do these things because they're so much closer to their genetic potential and their source, because it hasn't been altered through a sedentary lifestyle or just, you know, just culture in general. So the younger they are, the more comfortable I am with using odd tools, or what some would say are unconventional, but are actually the original tools. But yeah, as people are more removed from that natural movement ability, then I like to control it a little bit more. I guess it's a long-winded answer for just that. So.
No, I mean, thank you. No, that's something that has to be said. I had the same thought as Nigel in the chat. How about the smaller rock? What do you think of this?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we actually do have a bunch of rocks at the gym, and we use them. But again, it's like we're looking. Let's like look at the rock too. Like, so I'm actually, my phone is set up on this really like gnarly rock that's got sharp edges, and it's about 55 pounds. And I love this thing. And I have a little, like, I'm trying to show you. It's like this gnarly rock, and this is like my little sand pit. This is where I train, and I got these rocks. So yeah. So I mean, if you can even look at the rock. So some of these rocks here, this is like very smooth, you know, it's really nice to hold. But then you have different rocks, and like as a rock climber, sometimes like rocks get pretty sharp, you know. So I guess you can curate the rock itself. You can have like, oh, it's a river stone. This is really nice to hold in my hands. Feels good. Or this is a piece of like chossy granite that's crumbling and sharp, and like, I don't like holding it, but I'm gonna have to, you know. So you can even do that. But yeah, I don't have an issue with using rocks with certain people. But again, for me, to me, it's like some people who, they came to a MovNat gym, but they still don't really care, you know. They just want to feel good. So I want them to feel good. So I'm going to use the tool that will get them to that place of feeling good the fastest. And it, you know, sometimes maybe it's a rock because they enjoy that, or sometimes it's a kettlebell, or sometimes it's a barbell. And you just have to look at your clients, and you have to kind of see what they need, but also give them what they want too. Because let's look at, like, I don't know if anyone's familiar with like strong first training modality, but sometimes like I love, like, cause I'm like a nerd when it comes to exercise science. and like MovNat and everything. So I'm okay with like, all right, I'm going to do 100 snatches right now and just do snatches, you know? So I'm okay with that. But when you tell your client, they're like, that's so boring, I don't want to do that. It's like, oh, but you should do this. You should do like, we should just work on jumps all day. But they don't want to do that, you know? So they want to, like, people have short attention spans sometimes. So you have to constantly like change what they're doing and change the program and make it dynamic and make it fun. Because not everybody is a MovNat trainer or a check practitioner or a strong first trainer where they're okay with just like practicing one thing for an extended period of time to get good at that one thing. So you know, you have to know what you have to either explain that to your clients and tell them like, hey, you're going to get a lot of benefit because you're already good at deadlifting, but you're really bad at deep squatting. So we should just work on your deep squat for a while and then kind of nurture the deadlift on the side, you know, because that was something that I took away from my level 2 was there was some skills that like I really needed to refine. And like for me, as like the type of athlete that I was growing up, you know, I had like the heel raised shoes, as many people do, but I was doing really heavy lifts in them. So I ended up getting like pretty tight ankles. So my ankle mobility was like garbage. It was totally shit. And that really impacted my deep squat. And then I ended up having some low back stuff too. And I'm like, I'm seeing the pattern that this is all connected. So I'm like, all right, I just need to spend an inordinate amount of time opening up my ankles and opening up my hips so that all of this just comes together. And, you know, and it was just doing a sequence of maybe like 3 to 5 ground movements that all tie together. And I just spent a lot of time every day for years doing those things, you know. And it's that to me has been the hardest message to sell, that like to get people away from that like quick hit mentality. You know, I just want this quick hit, I want the quick fix. And it's like, no, this is the long road. This is the rest of your life type of road. And you're gonna be happier doing it that way. And it's gonna be sustainable. And you're not gonna blow your body out, you know. So
yeah,
I don't even know if I answered the question, but
you did, and you even answered my next question without even knowing it, because I was about to ask you about some key selling points, you know, of MovNat. I can bring one more, and I think it's one of the other key ones, and you will see that it's back to our story, which is adaptation. I give you an example, and the adaptation between barbell versus rock, or even a log, because we haven't mentioned logs yet. But you know, we love manipulate logs. In level 3, you do a lot of log carrying. I had a guy in level 2, French guy, very good and very high level in powerlifting. So he was telling us his background in powerlifting using barbells. And I found this place where it was full of logs. And they, you know, the guys, they just cut it. It was fresh, ready to go. I was like, oh, we'll use them for free. You know what I mean? So it's a good opportunity. And I started to show a clean and jerk with a log. So the volume is much bigger than the barbell. And this guy had no problem with the technique, but he gave himself a free shave on the neck. Because he was very close to his throat all the time, you know, because he was used to this movement with the barbell, and he didn't adapt well to the log. So, but that was a great selling point for him. He was like, man, I mean, now I understand. If I want to be useful in the woods, you know, maybe lifting a heavy log and without hurting myself, I need to get you know, more natural, and using MovNat as a tool, you know, to use more. That's why I was asking you, why not using a rock? Why not using a log? And teach them how to do a proper deadlift, how to do proper clean, you know, with this particular object. Because at the end of the day, if people follow MovNat and they like MovNat, it's because they want to get out of the gym as well. They want to prepare in the gym, but then they want to explore and have fun. You know, makes sense?
Oh, it makes total sense. And yeah, I mean, that's something that I personally wanted to do more of, because for us, we started to have a really hard time, just like mentally and emotionally, being at the gym all the time. It is so far removed from what and who we are and what we like to do. So, I mean, since this quarantine started, I have gotten outside 10 times more than I had all of last year combined. Just because, you know, it was a new business and I had to be at the gym all day. And I mean, it was great. Like I got some great training in. I was moving all the time, like, but it was inside, and it, like, you're under fluorescent lights, and I'm just like, it didn't feel good. And some of our most successful events were outdoors, you know. And I mean, the hands down the most successful one in terms of community and people coming was led by myself, Matt, and then our other coach, Rory. And Rory's a survival specialist. I mean, the guy owns like 25 things. He's like, he's the best. But he's well, let me go charge my phone real quick. But yeah, I mean, he led that workshop, and we spent the entire day, about 7 hours, going through the woods, teaching people how to lift up logs and rocks and picking up each other on your shoulders, you know, doing the whole thing, like the real MovNat experience. And we were doing plant identification and just going through the entire gamut of MovNat. And that's what I want to do more of. You know, I want to get out of the gym, because it's just I mean, it's a great place to practice, but it's not what the message is about at the end of the day. And so I guess, you know, we can start talking more about that if you want, but I really enjoy doing more outdoor things like that. That's where my heart is. That's what I grew up doing. And that's where the health is, you know, being in the sunlight, exposing your hands to dirt and soil, and just, you know, being barefoot. Like, you can't replicate that. You can't biohack that. Like, you just have to do it.
I think this is totally in line with what Danny also initiated last year with the permaculture workshop. You know, yeah. I think he did two permaculture workshops in Vermont, which were great. I heard. So the concept was that he would teach natural movement, and he had a permaculture expert on next to him. So they would, you know, divide the hours, do gardening, do a lot of stuff like that. And I think you bring a great concept for maybe the future, or for the MCTs who want to have a MovNat facility, which is to have actually both spaces, like an indoor space and an outdoor space. I have an example now in Ireland. It's a city called Westport. So they are really on the coast. It's beautiful, you know, island, green, and raining a lot, but green. And they have the gym that we hosted a level 1, level 2 certification last year. And this year they're already building a outdoor facility right next to the gym, because obviously they also don't want people to wear masks and have sanitizers every 2 minutes. So they want to do as many outdoor classes as they can. So they're building, you know, in their free land next to the gym, they're building what I also call a jungle gym, but that can be an outdoor MovNat facility. And I understand that it's not easy for like a nature lover that embraces MovNat to be indoors all the time. So that's the catch-22. You know, you want to help people, but at the same time you feel a bit, you know, less, you know, thriving from nature. So I think that's a great topic that would require a much deeper discussion. But I think the concept is this: if people have the luxury to have an outdoor space, you know, do both, because people will be reluctant, Nate. You can agree that some people out of shape or not like you, growing up outdoors, they will be like, oh, you know, it's a bit windy, it's a bit cold, or it's a bit this, a bit that.
Intimidating. Yeah. Definitely intimidating. So we've got a couple questions coming in.
All right. So yeah, hey, the time flies, Nate, and that's a good sign, which means that the discussion is great. We have a question from David. What age groups come to you at MovNat Denver? So first of all, yeah, since the time you open and you have this gym, and so you said that now you have a better view on what's going on and what you can do. So tell us about this before age group and going into details.
What can you rephrase the question?
Yeah,
So
so you said at the beginning of the call that now you have a better perspective on what you can do with Matt, and
oh yeah,
you see the future in a better, in a clearer way.
yeah. So this facility that we're in now, we're actually gonna have to move out of it. And we haven't done like the whole announcement and everything, but now because we weren't sure what was gonna happen. But with the overhead that just being in Denver brings, and being at our location on West Colfax. Colfax is the main road that runs through Denver. It's actually, I think it's the longest road in the world with one name. I mean, it goes from like all the way through Denver, way up into the mountains. It used to be all connected at one point, and now there's new highways and stuff. But anyway, but yeah, so I mean, we're on that road, and that's a main strip, so it's a little bit expensive. And that was really, really difficult for us to get the volume that we needed to meet the requirements of having that building. So we're going to be moving out of there. We obviously have all the cube stuff still. We got a bunch of great equipment. And so our next steps, though, is just we're trying to just cut our overhead and focus outdoors and bring those people and that, you know, that email list that we generated over the whole year. Like, we still have all those people, and we still have people interested, and that people want to come, and we want to focus more outdoors for a while. And then we have another facility who, these guys are MovNat trainers. They did the either the second or the very first MovNat course that was ever done like a long time ago. And those are the same guys that I was hanging out with when Danny did our little intimate level 2. So one of them just bought a 10,000 square foot facility, and it's beautiful, super cool. It's got the AstroTurf, big cage, all the stuff. So he has a little bit of extra space to bring some cubes in there. So we might just partner with them for a while, and then that way, you know, he can do what he wants to do, and we can still provide the MovNat message, you know, be MovNat Denver. And what's actually kind of like an interesting side note, they were originally MovNat Denver like 9 years ago. They were the first ones, and they didn't follow through with it. They ended up being their own brand, but they still owned the URL. So they gifted it to us, and we were kind of the spiritual successor to it. But now we're kind of coming back together, the original guys and the new guys coming back together to try and just create something new. We want to keep it fresh, you know, and we still want to do this, but I think we want to have a little bit more freedom in how we can operate and not be as tied down to one location. And so my main advice for anybody who's really wanting to do this, like you said, to echo what you said, super important to have access to getting outside relatively easy, you know, or having something just from the get-go, having like, oh, this is our, every Friday we meet at this park or a different park, and we do something every Friday. That's where class is, you know, that's where we're meeting. And then get everybody on board with that, you know, get a community around that. That would be huge. You know, that's a time to play. That's a time to practice everything you've been doing in the gym. You know, that's time to really like tie it all together. And then also don't get yourself into a situation that locks you in more than you think you could handle, possibly, like, or maybe you think you can handle it, but really, really think through the details on any location, any business idea that you're going to do. Really get through it, because I mean, and I'm not an expert by any means, but like, I've made enough mistakes in the past year to learn from a lot of things. So it's important to try and be as happy as you can while providing this message and working with people. Because that, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Like, you need to take care of yourself. You know, change in the world starts from within. If you're not taking care of who you are and what you want to be, then you're never going to provide what you want to provide to other people. It's going to be extremely difficult, and you won't be fulfilled. So yeah, just really think through it. You know, anyone out there who's trying to do this, that's an important thing.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I mean, people will not even show up. I mean, they will show up once and they will feel the vibe. You know, it's all about the
Hmm.
vibe, the energy that you bring.
Yeah.
Passion is a great, you know, item, and also being happy. So
Hmm.
great thing. So it's already, yeah, we passed the hour, but let's do a couple of more minutes for some
Okay.
other questions, if you don't mind, Nate. You okay?
No, I don't mind.
All right. So Elizabeth was saying, a good question. What are your clients' goals before starting MovNat classes? And do those goals change after that?
Yes, the goals change for sure. Um, and when it comes to private clients, their goals are largely getting out of pain. So anyone I'm seeing privately, they have like a blown shoulder, a lot of low back pain. It's like a really common thing. Um, Neck pain, like, I mean, so much pain stems from the spine, you know, or how your spine is moving. I mean, yeah, maybe you could have like joint specific injuries, and sometimes you can mitigate the pain. It depends on how bad it was. You know, I had one client and she had literally exploded her glenohumeral head. So like where the top of her humerus goes into the shoulder, it exploded. Like she landed on it or something hit it and it just fractured into like 20 pieces. So they got it put back together. You know, needless to say, her range of motion would never be the same, no matter what you do. But I got more. I got her more range of motion, and I took the pain away. So that if you can get people out of pain and again happy, that's huge. And that's so private clients. That's usually what it is. You know, you'll get people who just want to move better and perform better, and I love working with those people. But it's pretty rewarding getting somebody to feel good, you know? So I like that. And then when someone just comes to class, um, a lot of times, like it was mobility, like our mobility classes were really popular. And so another thing that Matt and I practice is called Eldoa. And it's a French practice, and it's all about opening up the spine. So we would combine Eldoa with some MovNat groundwork and just put the two things together and just get people's hips, you know, nice and loose. And just so like everything you do once you gain more mobility becomes easier. So that was a big thing that we saw. And then, yeah, we'd get people in there who were there for strength. You know, they came in just because it was a gym and they're like, oh yeah, I want to get stronger, want to like get lean and all this stuff. And they're there, but then we start asking them to do certain things like, okay, we're doing like some deep squat walks today, or we're doing something like that, and they can't do it. And so now the goals change. And the goals change because all of a sudden you've opened up this movement doorway that they've never even thought of or never saw, but they're driven. So they, you know, they want to be an athlete, or they used to be an athlete. And so they see these things they can't do. And that's a big motivator for a lot of people. When you start to see something that like you can't do, but you feel like you could do it or should be able to do it, all of a sudden that becomes a goal that you didn't even know about. So the more you introduce people to new ways of moving, you'll start to see goals change pretty rapidly. And that because they just get more excited about the movement than they do about the aesthetic, you know.
Yeah, for that you need an open mind, right?
You do. Yeah, you do. And something I think an important note on open mind too, to truly be open-minded is to be receptive to an idea. An idea comes in, but you need to let that idea go. Just as easy as it comes in, it needs to leave your brain just as easily. If, you know, if it doesn't serve you any longer, or someone raises a counterpoint and you're like, you know what, like that thing that I thought for 10 years, like I can let it go. That to me is like being truly open-minded. Easy come, easy go. Kind of like a dog, you know, like chasing the cat, didn't catch the cat. All right, we'll let it go. So,
Less overthinking.
yep.
Great.
Do
Thank you for
we have
the.
any other, huh?
No, just thank you for the answer. That was great.
Yeah.
Last question we have from David. Any tips to convince people to move outside, rainy weather, cold, and so on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest convincing thing, this isn't maybe the best answer, but if you can get people outside, if you were to get them outside and it's raining and they kind of experience what that feels like, and then when it's over, you know, it feels really good. I mean, that feeling alone, it's like, you know, you survived the thunderstorm or something. You're like, oh man, that was crazy. You know, that was the best story. You're invigorated. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. But if they're apprehensive on it, I like, you know, it comes back to adaptability and capability. If you just inch yourself into those situations and you explain people that, like, that they can just slowly integrate it. It's like, okay, maybe it snowed at your house. Just go walk outside barefoot for 5 seconds. Just see what it feels like, and then go back inside. You know, again, that's where a controlled system can really help people. You have your house. Oh, it's dumping rain. Go walk outside without your shirt on, no shoes, and just feel it. Just feel what it's like. You're not gonna die. You'll be totally fine. And then just go back inside and go sit by the fireplace or something and like warm yourself up. So yeah, I mean, people should just try it at their house. When the weather turns bad, go feel it. Go feel the bad weather in your natural condition. Like, unless you're going on an expedition, you know, or going hunting, and you have to, like, all right, I'm going to be out here for 10 hours. Like, I should put some clothes on. You're going to be okay for 5 minutes outside in the cold and the wet and the rain. And, you know, like when we did our level 3, it was in September. I've done it twice, but our last one, you know, it's pouring rain, super hard in New Mexico. It was about 45 degrees. And we get there and Danny's just immediately like shoes off, shirts off, you know, don't bring anything with you. And we just start running and crawling through mud for, you know, it rained for a good 45 minutes. We're shivering, we're cold, and everybody was fine. It was totally fine. So, I mean, and then, like, you know, the sun comes out, and as soon as the sun comes out, it's just like you're elated. The mood, like, you can't replace that, you know? You can't, there's nothing that, there's no drug, there's nothing that can replace that. That's the best feeling.
We cannot end better than this. Elizabeth was saying thanks. We have Amber. Great chat today. Thank you. Love walking in the snow barefoot.
Oh, that's great.
There you go. Coach Julie, thank you, Nate, for so many nuggets of wisdom, including be happy yourself while you're trying to spread this message. This has been a great morning.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad people enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
So, Nate, I have to thank you. That was a great chat indeed. I'm sure many people in the chat said that, and many participants are enjoying it. Many will from the YouTube link that I will share right after this chat, and I will share it on Facebook on the MovNat Certified Trainer group. Okay.
Awesome.
So I wanted to thank you also on behalf of MovNat for everything you have done. For MovNat, you have been the flagship, you know, and also hosting the level 1 fundamentals e-course, you know, the e-course that everybody I think in chat has seen. That was in your facility. Some of your people were actually training behind Danny and Stefan.
Yeah.
So that was great, and so thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was fun. It's been a wild ride this past couple of years, but it was really rewarding in a lot of ways.
So you stay with us, right? Nothing changes.
I mean, we're with MovNat. Like, we're definitely with MovNat. I mean, and then what that looks like, we still don't know in terms of, like, you know, is it a solid facility? Are we more mobile? Like, we're not really sure what it looks like. But yeah, I mean, Matt and I we're part of MovNat, and yeah, we're gonna keep being a part of this. Yeah.
And we will have your back when, you know, whatever you choose to do. You know, we love the outdoors too, so, you know, we hope for it. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll
hey,
have
thank
your
you
back.
so much.
No problem. So
yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much again to all. That was a great hour, and the MCT show number 10 is in the books, like I used to say. And you take care, and it was great to get to know you, Nate, and I hope we can meet in person one day.
Yeah, I would love to. Hey, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.